So how does a community actually put down roots in a brand new country? Well, for Korean Americans, if you want to tell the story of their immigration, you basically have to tell the story of their church. The two are so intertwined, they're practically the same journey. So let's dive in and see how this incredible story unfolded.
Our guide for this story is Pastor James Hwang. He's a researcher of Korean mission history who served as a missionary in China and is now serving in Maryland. We're going to be drawing from his amazing book, Remember and Repay, 52 Weeks of Mission Meditation. And what you're about to hear is the mission history story for the third week of January.
You know, there's a saying that American observers noted way back in the day that just captures this whole thing perfectly. When Koreans gather, they build a church. It sounds simple, right? But that one sentence, it's absolutely the key to understanding how this community found its footing, its voice, and its strength in a totally new land.
All right, so here's how we're going to walk through this. First, we'll look at a story of two beginnings. Then we'll see where the very first seed was planted, out in Hawaii. From there, we'll follow the community to the mainland, watch it spread all across America, and then we'll wrap up by reflecting on this amazing 120-year journey. Okay, let's get right into it with the story of two beginnings. And I mean this literally. We're about to see how the official history of Korean immigration to the U.S. and the history of the Korean American Church don't just run parallel, they start on the exact same page.
The year is 1903. To be exact, January 13th. This is the official start date for Korean immigration to the United States. And they didn't land on the mainland. They arrived to work on the sugar plantations in Hawaii. So, faced with a new world, a new language, and backbreaking work, what's the very first thing they did?
Well, that question takes us right here, to the first seed planted in Hawaii. It wasn't about waiting or getting settled first. It was this immediate, powerful need to create a home, both spiritually and for the community.
And the timing on this is it's mind-blowing. Not a few years later, not even a few months, but in 1903, the very same year they landed, these immigrants founded the Christ United Methodist Church. Right away, it became what's known as their mother church, a bedrock, a community center, and a sanctuary for people facing incredible challenges so far from home.
But of course, the story didn't stay put in Hawaii. As immigrants started making their way to the U.S. mainland, they brought that exact same blueprint for building community with them. And just look at the pace of this. By the end of that same year, 1903, a church was already up and running in San Francisco. Then boom, Los Angeles in 1904, another one in LA in 1906, then Oakland by 1914. It wasn't just happening, it was a full-blown movement, building these spiritual homes all up and down the West Coast.
But here's the thing. Because the church was the absolute heart of the community, it also became the main stage for its politics, and that meant conflict. The church in San Francisco actually went through a really painful split. It was between two groups, the Dongji-ho, led by Syngman Rhee, who would later become president of Korea, and the Kukmin-ho, led by the activist Ahn Chung-ho. And what were they divided over? The very direction of the Korean independence movement back home.
This just goes to show you these were never just places for Sunday service. They were active nerve centers for Korean nationalism. I mean, get this, the Olive United Methodist Church in Hawaii was actively raising money and sending it to the Provisional Government of the Republic of Korea in Shanghai. That's a direct line from a church congregation to a government in exile. Okay, so the community is now firmly planted on the West Coast. What's the next logical step? Well, it's a long one. The journey east, all the way across the continent. Now, this eastward move, it took a little more time. The New York Korean Methodist Church wasn't founded until 1921. Then came Chicago in 23, mostly started by students. And then you see a big jump, and after World War II, a whole new wave starts popping up in the early 50s in D.C., Philly, and Boston. The community was officially going coast to coast. And let's just zoom in for a second on one of these incredible people. The pastor of that Chicago church, Reverend Kim Chang-jun, he wasn't just a pastor. He was one of the original 33 signers of the Korean Declaration of Independence back in 1919. Think about that. There's this direct, powerful link between a church in the American Midwest and the very soul of the Korean fight for independence.
And let's talk about timing again. The Washington Korean Church was established in 1951. What was happening in 1951? The Korean War was raging. The homeland was facing this enormous existential crisis, and right at that moment, a community thousands of miles away plants a new church. It's such a profound statement of hope and persistence,
keeping that cultural and spiritual flame alive during the absolute darkest of times. And this growth just kept going, using that same Mother Church model we saw way back in Hawaii. So for example, the Washington Korean Baptist Church gets founded in 1956. It grows and becomes a community base. And then, what happens? Its own members go on to start new churches, like Global Mission Church and Fellowship Church. It's this beautiful organic way of growing that just keeps spreading.
And that brings us to our final section, where we can kind of step back and reflect on this whole thing. This incredible 120-year journey where the history of a people and the history of their faith are just completely woven together.
After the Korean War, and especially after U.S. immigration laws changed in the 1960s, the growth just hit the accelerator. This little snapshot of the East Coast says it all. You've got Baltimore in '67, D.C. getting another church in '68, Atlanta in '71. The Korean American Church was no longer just a few outposts. It was a powerful, nationwide presence.
So really, when you get right down to it, it is absolutely no exaggeration to say that the history of the Korean American Church is the history of Korean immigration. They grew up together, they shared every single joy and every single sorrow from those very first steps on Hawaiian soil all the way to the huge, vibrant communities we see today.
And so that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This whole journey started 120 years ago as a response to hardship, as a deep-seated need for community. The big question for today is, how does that shared journey continue? In the 21st century, what is the role of the Korean Church as it continues to walk alongside the immigrant community?